we have some questions to Stump the Consultant. So the idea, as we know, is to see how good you are in the questions and how good you are, Kimeya, in the answers. So it's my pleasure to bring Stephen Friend in, the quizmaster himself, to make it really difficult, hopefully, for you, Kimeya. Well, you know, that sounded terrible, didn't it? But we are going to try and stump you. So over to you, Steve.
Thank you so much, Grant, and welcome, Kimeya. I know how much you love these Stump the Consultant sessions. Is that fair to say?
Oh, I don't know. We'll see if someone can stump me.
Very good. Well, look, we've got a combination here of some live questions that have been asked, as well as some questions that were identified by those that registered for the session. So I've got some online questions and some offline questions. And before we get started, let me just encourage the audience just to add their questions. Keep them coming. The trickier, the better. And let's see if we can give Kimeya some curly ones. All right. So firstly, I'm going to start with some simple ones, Kimeya. We'll start with the easy ones first. Okay. Got a question here in terms of reporting as to whether there's a better way to add terms and conditions in quotes under the opportunity screen. And we might just have to interpret this a little bit. Currently, they only add terms and conditions as a default note in the quote. But of course, that's not quite good enough as they can't format the notes. The quote doesn't look very professional. Can you maybe just talk to us, Kimeya, about some options around providing good quality quotes out of MYOB Advanced?
Yep, absolutely. So I can imagine that the formatting in the notes isn't quite so pretty. So my suggestion would be to actually add another page with your terms and conditions within the quote form template itself. So you can have your main quote data and then an additional page at the bottom with your terms and conditions there. Okay, so if they're standard terms and conditions, that's perfectly fine. It will work quite well. And you can even do things like add in an attribute in order to say show terms and conditions with a checkbox on your opportunity for those cases where you don't want to show your opportunities. And then that attribute can be used as a condition within your quote in order for you to determine whether you want it to show or not when you're printing out a quote. So I think that would be your best option. We do have quite a number of clients that actually use that as well. So yeah, reach out to your partner. I'm sure they'll be able to help you out.
Fantastic. That's great, Kimeya. Now, we had another question around the process bank transactions process. Now, I think you covered a little bit of it off in the last session, but let me just ask this question for you. One of the concerns that this attendee has received from their team is about the process bank transaction. They asked why it doesn't have the tax category in the create payment type CA. Can you give me an explanation on why, as they mentioned, that by default it calculates GST on lines?
Okay, so again, yeah, perfectly good question, and I'm no surprise that your team are wondering why it's not a feature, but now it is. So as I demonstrated earlier, which I can show you again if I share my screen with you, in the banking module now on the process bank transaction screen, what we now have is the ability to do that. So when I create a payment and select an entry type in here, this tax category is new. Okay, so this will give your team the ability to actually decide whether a GST applies or not. Okay, so by default, this particular scenario is set up to be blank, but if you would like it to default to a particular tax, you can also do that. So that would be setting up the appropriate tax category. So on the entry type itself, sorry, I'm in the wrong screen. I'm going to go to cash accounts instead. Okay, and on your cash account, you should have your entry types tab, And if we look at expense, for example, you should see that you have a tax zone. So on this particular tax zone in your categories, you can actually decide what's your default tax category. So that would be a way for you to default that. But if you just want to have it blank, it then gives you the ability to obviously take it off or on. Either way, it'll give you the ability to pick and choose on a line basis.
That's great, Kimeya. Of course, that's only available in the most recent series of updates. So if you don't see that at the moment, you might not have actually had that upgrade yet, or you might potentially have deferred that upgrade. Just reach out to your business partner. They can confirm when you're scheduled to receive that new functionality. And of course, as Kimeya's identified, a great time saving there. Thank you, Kimeya. Another question here, does MYOB Advanced support standard costing? Good question, Tim.
Yes, absolutely. So on your stock items, right, if I create a new one for you, let's jump in here. Okay, so on a standard stock item, you do have the valuation method. So you have the standard cost option here. So this is what you would select. And then from there on your pricing, what you have is the ability to put in your costs. So you put in a pending cost in here and pending cost state, all right? And then you would update your cost. So by updating that cost on that particular date, it's making it that particular cost effective as of that date. And then you have a current cost and you can then update as you need to. So you even have the option of updating your standard cost in bulk.
Yeah.
So it's a standard functionality in MYOB Advanced.
Of course, those costing methods are defined by inventory items. So if you do need to have mixed valuation methods, for example, we have some manufacturing items that we want to value based on standard costs. We've got other inventory items that are purchased items, and we want to maintain average cost for those or specific costs. You can mix and match those valuation methods as required by the business. Of course, product costing is a really, really complex one. So talk to your accountant, talk to your business partner, and make sure you get some good guidance around that as well. Now, a question here in terms of dashboards, Kimeya, and I don't know that we've got a really good answer for this one. How do you insert a new line of widgets in the middle of an established dashboard layout without the endless widget shuffle?
Short answer is there isn't an easy way, unfortunately, because the dashboards are designed to be very flexible for you to kind of move them in any way that you like and shuffle, squeeze. There's no sort of set structure or lines, I would say, or sectioning, because it gives you the flexibility to move all about. So unfortunately, my answer is going to be no.
So does that class as a stump the consultant? I'm not sure, but we'll continue on. Kimeya, we'll continue on.
It's a feature that I can control, so I don't know about that. It would be lovely. It would be lovely, of course.
It would be nice. It would be nice.
All right, another one. Put it in the ideas portal.
We'll put it in the request list.
Yeah.
Now, why is there no void or delete function on transactions? It would make correcting a small mistake a 30-second fix rather than a half-day exercise.
Yes.
And the auditors in the room said...
No, big no. Okay, so MYOB Advanced is designed to be very strict with its processes, and it forces you essentially to do the right thing. Basically, it has such a good auditing functionality. Okay, it records all transactions, dates, times. We've got the field level audit, which you can turn on. So in keeping in line with that, it doesn't like deleting any records. It likes to have a good audit trail of what's happening in the system. So unfortunately, it does not allow you to delete transactions if you're not in entry mode. So once you release a transaction, it's there to stay, and you will have to go to the appropriate module and either reverse or create credit memos, debit memos, or the voiding feature is available when you're doing payments. But again, it's not going to make that transaction disappear. It's just simply going to reverse it. So it's always going to stay there. So yeah, as nice as it would be from an accounting's perspective and an auditor's perspective, it's doing just the right thing.
Now, don't blame Kimeya for that. Of course,
Yeah.
it's blame the auditors. They're the ones that enforce some of these processes on us. And you can certainly understand, though, how important some of those things are when it comes to the prevalence of fraud and those sorts of issues within some businesses. The fact that you can't just delete transactions, the fact that you do have that audit trail is actually a feature and a benefit for us. All right. Now, while we're on the subject of finance, got another question here from Jessie. Can we create a manual journal transaction with GST? And by that, what she means is within one journal, have one line that's GST inclusive and another line with no GST.
Right. So journals. So I'm guessing you mean just from here. Right, there is functionality to post. So it is a feature, if I'm not mistaken. Sorry, it's taking okay, it's not loading how I would like it, but we'll just talk this one out. So yes, there is a feature in the enable features that allows you to post GST transactions. So there we go. So create tax transactions here. Okay, so that is an option. All right. So when you are creating your GL transactions, you might have to turn that feature on in order to be able to decide what's applicable to GST or not.
Perfect. Again, talk to your business partner about that one. So it is an enable feature. Is that right, Kimeya?
Yes, it should be an enable feature, which will give you the option to do this.
Perfect. There you go, Jessie. You heard it here first. All right. Another question here. What is the best way to include a URL in inventory descriptions to appear on a quote?
Okay, so I wouldn't suggest putting it in the description itself. That is because this description is used quite widely. It's a very common field. So if you want to include the URL, I would suggest creating an attribute against the stock item to contain that URL. And then it's simple enough to pull that attribute into your quotes or any other forms that you may have. And that can be linked as well. So as soon as they click on it, it will take them directly to the website. Yeah.
Perfect. Now we'll rush through. We're nearly at the end of time. With regards to generic inquiries, we've got one of our attendees who's been using GIs to create notification templates. And what they're finding is that dates are being formatted into US date format in the notification template, even though in the GI, it's in AU format.
Yes. Okay. So this seems to be quite a common one recently. Short answer is Acumatica haven't actually given GIs the ability to pull the formatting from the GI straight into the notification template yet. So I can imagine that it's been brought to their attention because there's been quite a common request recently. However, as a workaround, I would suggest actually putting a formula on your date fields. So manually putting together the date within the GI. So, and then that will actually work in your notification template. So not using the standard date field, but actually putting in a formula. So I'll copy it, I'll paste this into the answer in your question if it's still there. Is it still there? Yes. Put it in as an example. I'll put it in there as an example for you to try. So I would recommend putting this formula into the date field in your GI and giving that a go.
Perfect. Great stuff, Kimeya. There is one more question there, which is when does single sign-on and text recognition, I'm assuming OCR for AP invoices specifically, when are those two features becoming available? But we're going to hear from James Brading shortly. And I know that's one of the points that he'll be talking to. So we might just leave that for then. I think that's us for now, Kimeya. I'm afraid we didn't get to stump you. There was a couple of close calls, but great job as always. Thank you, and we'll hand back to Grant.
All right.
Thanks a lot, Steve. Yeah, thanks, Kimeya. Yeah, like I was going to put a protest in. She did actually not get stumped, even if the system couldn't quite do it as well as we might have wanted. The answer was still provided, so I'm going to call that one no stump. So well done, Kimeya. We barely stumped you at all, which is great. And I hope everyone, again, got something out of that. There's great things to know. And Steve will be back a bit later where we put him on the spot because he loves nothing more than to not only be a fantastic contributor and coordinator and producer of this show, the user groups, but also he loves stumping consultants. But we'll get him back later. We'll see how that goes. So